The weapon so brutal, it was banned forever. Imagine a weapon so terrifying, soldiers feared using it more than facing it. A weapon that left its victims disfigured, screaming in agony with wounds doctors could barely treat. It wasn't a nuclear bomb, and it wasn't poison gas. It was something far more personal, and it was eventually banned by nearly every nation on Earth. But what was it? And why was it considered too brutal, even in the middle of the world's bloodiest wars? First reveal, the weapon. The answer lies in a small, deadly piece of steel the Dum-Dum bullet created. In the late 19th century at the Dum-Dum Arsenal in British India, these expanding bullets were designed to inflict maximum damage to the human body. Instead of passing cleanly through, they tore flesh apart, leaving gaping wounds. But here's the chilling part. Soldiers who survived often wished they hadn't. The wounds were so catastrophic, amputations became the only option, the justification. Military leaders defended dum-dums by arguing we need them. Regular bullets, they claimed, weren't stopping enemies fast enough, especially in colonial wars, where opponents kept fighting even after being shot. Expanding bullets were the brutal solution. One shot could bring down any enemy. But here's the twist: what generals saw as necessary, doctors and humanitarian groups saw as inhumane. The outrage begins. Reports spread quickly. Soldiers shot with dum-dums arrived at field hospitals in horrific condition. Surgeons described wounds so mutilating they couldn't even stitch them closed. Newspapers called them man-killers. Humanitarian activists compared them to poison gas. Suddenly, the question wasn't just about winning wars. It was about whether civilization itself could tolerate such weapons. The Turning Point Hague Conference. In 1899, the world's powers gathered at The Hague. On the table, a ban on expanding bullets. The British argued fiercely they wanted to keep their weapon. But one after another, nations stood against them. Even hardened generals admitted the wounds were too cruel. Finally, the verdict came: expanding bullets were outlawed under the Hague Convention. The dum-dum became the first modern weapon formally banned in war. The secret reality: on paper, the ban worked. But on battlefields, not so much. Soldiers and officers quietly ignored the treaty. In both world wars, there were whispers some armies modified bullets to mimic dum-dums. Officially, they didn't exist. Unofficially, they never went away. Which raises the chilling question: if they were banned, why were they still used? The horror lives on. In fact, the legacy of dum-dums is still with us. Today, expanding bullets live on in a new form: hollow points. Police forces around the world use them, not in war, but in law enforcement. Why? Because they stop targets quickly and reduce the risk of bullets passing through and hitting bystanders. Yet critics argue, isn't this the same brutal logic that justified dum-dums over a century ago? The human cost. To understand why they were banned, we need to hear from those who saw the aftermath. A British surgeon in 1898 wrote, "A man struck in the chest by one of these bullets is practically torn to pieces. Soldiers feared being hit, not just because of death, but because surviving meant a lifetime of pain, disfigurement, or disability. In war, death was common, but dum-dums brought something worse, a living horror." Reflection. What does this say about us? Here's the uncomfortable truth. War has always been about finding new ways to kill. But every so often, humanity looks at a weapon and says, "Not this. This is too far." The dum-dum bullet was one of the first times nations agreed on that line. Yet history shows us that line keeps moving. From chemical weapons to nuclear bombs, the debate continues: what is too cruel, even for war? Closing, hook and takeaway. The story of the dum-dum bullet is more than forgotten history. It's a mirror showing how far humanity is willing to go, and how far we're willing to pull back. The weapon was banned because it was too brutal to be used on the battlefield. But even now, its modern descendants are still in use. Which leaves us with one haunting question. If this was the weapon too cruel for war, what horrors are still being used today, right now, in conflicts around the world?